I bought a storage unit for $50 and found a stalker's stash, folders, surveillance photos, and a list of victims. But the last folder was still empty, and it had my home address on it. This is Storage Unit 237. I used to make extra money buying abandoned storage units at auction and reselling whatever was inside. It wasn't like the shows on television. Most units were full of broken furniture, old clothes, or boxes of things no one wanted anymore. Still, every now and then, you'd find something worth the effort. I'd been doing it for almost 2 years when I bought Unit 237. The auction took place at a large facility on the outskirts of town, one of those sprawling complexes with long rows of identical metal doors. Unit 237 had belonged to someone who'd stopped paying rent about 6 months earlier. According to the paperwork, the facility had made repeated attempts to contact the renter. No response. Eventually, they cut the lock and scheduled it for auction. I was the only person who bid. The door had been raised just enough for us to see inside. The unit was small, maybe 5 by 8 feet, and it looked almost empty. I paid $50, the minimum bid, signed the forms, and was handed a new key. The manager told me I had 48 hours to clear it out. When I pulled my van up and opened the door fully, I understood why no one else had bothered. The unit held exactly 3 items: a metal filing cabinet, a taped-up cardboard box, and an old leather briefcase. They were placed neatly in the center of the concrete floor, with nothing else around them. No dust-covered clutter, no signs that anything had been removed recently, just empty space. I started with the filing cabinet. The top 2 drawers slid open easily and were completely empty. The bottom drawer was locked. I pried it open with a crowbar. Inside were folders, stacked carefully and labeled in neat handwriting. Each one had a name and a date. I pulled one at random. The name was Jennifer Hollis, followed by a month and year. Inside were photographs. All of them showed the same woman, taken from a distance. She was getting into her car, standing in line at a store, sitting alone at a cafe. None of the photos were posed. She never looked at the camera. Every folder was like that. Different names, different faces, same type of photos. Some folders were thin, others were thick, documenting months of someone's life. There were dozens of them. I closed the drawer and moved on to the box. Inside were more photographs, but these were worse. Grainy black and white images printed from security cameras. Bedrooms, living rooms, bathrooms. In several of them, people were asleep. The timestamps showed the images had been taken at all hours. I couldn't tell where the cameras had been placed, only that they'd been inside homes. At the bottom of the box was a spiral notebook. The entries were dated and written in a precise, detached way. Times, movements, notes about lights turning on and off, who came and went. As the pages went on, the tone changed. The writing became more personal. Observations turned into judgments. Patterns were identified, weaknesses noted. Near the end, the entry stopped describing and started planning. The last page mentioned Jennifer Hollis again. It noted she lived alone, no alarm system, a weak back door lock, a plan to enter on a Friday evening when the street would be quiet. The date matched the day the unit's rent stopped being paid. I looked her up on my phone. It didn't take long. She'd been reported missing 5 months earlier. Her car was found at her house. Her phone and purse were inside. There were no signs of a break-in. The case was still open. I opened the briefcase last. Inside were personal items, wallets, jewelry, keys, identification cards. None of them belonged to the same person. I recognized 2 names from local news stories, missing people, different cases, different years. I called the police from the unit. After that, everything blurred together. Interviews, statements, evidence bags. The police took everything. They traced the items to multiple unsolved cases. The cameras in the photos matched homes across the county. The person who rented the unit had used a fake name and paid in cash. The ID on file was a forgery. Security footage showed someone careful to stay unidentifiable. The detective told me they believed the person responsible had left town, not because they were caught, just because they'd finished. They did recover Jennifer Hollis. The others remain open cases. I don't go to auctions anymore. Sometimes, when I'm home alone, I think about how carefully that unit had been arranged, how nothing was rushed, how everything was labeled, stored, preserved. I check my apartment for cameras more often than I should. I change my routines. I notice people watching longer than they need to. They never found who rented Unit 237, and I know how easy it was for them to disappear. Into another town, another row of metal doors, another unit with a cheap lock and a clean concrete floor. The thought settles in quietly, usually late at night, when there's nothing to distract me from it. I still remember the handwriting on those folders, careful, consistent, someone who took their time, someone patient enough to watch a life unfold without being seen. That kind of patience doesn't disappear. It just looks for somewhere new to settle. Every so often, I catch myself counting unfamiliar cars on my street, noticing which ones come back at the same hours. I tell myself I'm being observant, not afraid. Still, I close my blinds earlier now. I don't leave lights on in empty rooms. A few weeks ago, I found a small piece of tape stuck to the inside of my front door, low near the hinge. It could have been anything, left over from a repair, something tracked in on a shoe. I peeled it off and threw it away, but I couldn't stop thinking about how easily it could have been used to mark whether the door was opened. Nothing else has happened. No notes, no messages, no proof that I'm being watched. But I know how those files were built. Slowly, quietly, one ordinary day at a time. And sometimes when I unlock my door and step inside, I have the brief, irrational sense that I've interrupted something, as if someone else had already been there, long enough to learn the layout, long enough to decide whether I was worth adding to a drawer that hasn't been opened yet. Some nights I leave the television on without really watching it, just to give the room a shape that feels occupied. Silence has started to feel like an invitation. I don't know when that changed. I've thought about moving, about putting distance between myself and that unit, that town, that stretch of road lined with storage buildings. But distance didn't stop him before. He followed routines, not addresses, and routines are easier to rebuild than homes. Last week, I received a package with no return address. It was small and light, left at my door sometime in the afternoon. Inside was a manila folder, no note, no explanation. The folder was empty. I threw it away, but I didn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about the filing cabinet, about how every folder I'd opened had once been empty, too. Someone had filled them slowly, deliberately, one moment at a time. I still tell myself there's no connection, that the package was a mistake, that I'm letting my imagination run too far ahead of me. But I've started paying attention to things I used to ignore, like the way my neighbor's lights turn off at the same time every night, or how easy it would be to see into my apartment from the street if someone knew where to stand. I don't feel hunted, not exactly. I feel observed, and that feels worse. It's a quiet feeling, patient, without urgency, the kind that doesn't rush because it doesn't have to. I've stopped checking the locks more than once. I make myself do it only once, slowly, the same way each night. I don't want to turn it into a ritual. Rituals can be learned. Sometimes, while washing dishes or folding laundry, I catch myself imagining how those notes were written, where the writer stood, how long they watched before deciding a detail was worth recording. I try to push the thought away, but it lingers longer than I expect. I no longer leave my phone face down on the table. I don't know why. It just feels wrong now, as if there's something about not seeing it that invites attention. Nothing has been taken from me. Nothing has been damaged. No line has been crossed that I could point to and say, this is where it began. That's what makes it hard to explain, even to myself. The worst part is how normal everything still looks. The street outside my window, the cars parked along the curb, the doors that close and lock the way they always have. There's no sign that anything is wrong, which makes it easy to imagine someone else standing somewhere nearby, noticing the same things I am, learning them, deciding when they've seen enough. If I ever do disappear, I doubt there will be much to find. Just an apartment that looks lived in, a routine that ends without explanation. And maybe, somewhere far from here, a new metal door rolling up to reveal an empty unit, waiting to be filled.